I've mentioned a few times over the past few months that as the Democrats' plans to foil Trump keep failing, sooner or later, they might even try to kill him. Spying on his campaign didn't work. Impeaching him didn't work. They might still imprison him, but after that, there's pretty much only one option left. Well, I hate to say I told you so. It seems that I have been proven right even sooner than I thought, thanks to Congressman Bennie Thompson, a Democrat from Mississippi who led the January 6th committee, who is now attempting to strip President Trump of his Secret Service protection. Since 1901, the Secret Service has protected every U.S. president. And since 1965, just after President Kennedy was assassinated, that protection has been extended to former presidents and their wives for the rest of their lives. The reason we have extended that courtesy to presidents and former presidents is that lots of people want to murder them. According to the FBI, there is currently an Iranian assassin on American soil recruiting co-conspirators to murder Trump as revenge for Trump's killing of an Iranian general. And for every Iranian hitman, there are probably 100, maybe 1,000 deranged leftists trying to murder Trump every single day. If that were not enough, Bennie Thompson specifically wants to deprive Trump of Secret Service protection if he is convicted in any one of the Democrats' kangaroo courts and sentenced to prison. Because no one's ever murdered in prison, right? A Democrat congressman is currently proposing to strip a former president of his security detail for the first time in almost 60 years at precisely the moment that he is most likely to be murdered, which means that Trump is not on trial for whatever hodgepodge of financial and political crimes the Democrats are preposterously alleging. The libs are not just threatening him with life in prison. They're threatening him with the death penalty. President Trump is currently on trial for a capital offense, the capital offense of beating the Democrats in 2016. I'm Michael Knowles. This is The Michael Knowles Show. Welcome back to the show. California Governor Gavin Newsom is running a new ad about young women who were pulled over by the police and forced to take a pregnancy test because all these pro-life laws. That ad, it really makes you think. It makes you think that Gavin Newsom is very, very silly. We will get to him in just a moment. First, though, speaking of babies, you ought to check out Preborn. Go to preborn.com/Knowles. Rolling Stone recently published an article that read, quote, "Abortion funds applaud Olivia Rodrigo's support. It takes guts." Apparently, Olivia Rodrigo is giving a portion of her tour proceeds to the National Network of Abortion Funds. We need to stand up for life now more than ever, which is why you need to go check out our friends over at Preborn. Preborn's network of clinics are positioned in the highest abortion areas, often right next to abortion clinics. Every day, they rescue 200 unborn babies from abortion by introducing a mother to her child on ultrasound. When the expecting mother hears her baby's heartbeat for the first time, she is twice as likely to choose life. Preborn offers mothers who choose life assistance for up to 2 years. Every time you see a celebrity donating to death, we can respond by donating to life. One ultrasound costs just $28 and can save a life. If you have the means, would you consider a leadership gift of $5,000? Your tax-deductible donation will sponsor Preborn's entire network for 24 hours, helping to rescue 200 unborn babies. Preborn has a 100% charity rating, so you can give with confidence. To donate, dial pound 250, say keyword baby. That is pound 250, keyword baby, or donate securely at preborn.com/Knowles, Canada WLES, preborn.com/Knowles. The libs never give up on pummeling their enemies. They never give up. You would think the libs might have been deterred after spying on Trump failed, after imprisoning his associates failed, after impeaching him failed, after trying to impeach him again failed, after so on and so forth. They just keep pummeling. It's not only true in regards to Trump. It's not only true in the United States. We're seeing this right now in Finland. All the way over in happy Finland, The Supreme Court of Finland will hear a case of a member of parliament who is being prosecuted for sharing a Bible verse. This MP is Päivi Räsänen. I don't know how to do it. Seems like a nice lady. Facing charges related to her sharing a 2019 tweet that included pictures of a Bible verse and a pamphlet on marriage that she wrote in 2004, which is obviously very politically incorrect now, because back in 2004, people still believed things about marriage that everyone had always believed everywhere forever, which is different than right now when we are not allowed to believe anything about marriage that anyone believed anywhere ever before, say, 2015. The charges had been dismissed by the district court and the Helsinki Court of Appeal. Doesn't matter. The state prosecutors are just still going after this woman. They want to pummel her. They want to punish her for sharing a Bible verse and for articulating the view of marriage that statistically everyone held forever. They want to fine her tens of thousands of euro, and they want to censor her. Another person, a bishop, Johanna Pohjola, not sure bishop of what church, will be tried at the same time on similar charges. The charges were brought publicly, or were brought first after Räsänen, again, please apologies to the MP for my poor Finnish pronunciation, after she publicly questioned why the church that she is a part of was sponsoring an LGBT pride celebration. So for the crime, this was the inciting incident, the crime of asking why a church is celebrating not only disordered sexual acts, which are condemned and prohibited many times in the Bible, and of course throughout the entire history of Christianity and the church. But furthermore, even put the weird sex stuff aside for a second, pride. She's asking, why is the church celebrating pride? Pride is the queen of all vices. My friend Andrew Clavin points out it's now the vice of all queens. And also it's the primordial sin. If you believe that there is such a thing as sin, which, is kind of an important concept for churches, then pride is a pretty big one. Some would call it the original sin from which all the other sins spring. So she says, isn't it kind of weird that a church is sponsoring something having to do with pride? And for this, she is prosecuted. She was accused of, quote, agitation against a minority group. And where is this supposed offense listed? It's listed under a section of, quote, war crimes and crimes against humanity in the Finnish law. If you ask, hey, isn't it kind of weird that a church would celebrate the original sin and the queen of all vice? You are committing a war crime or some other crime against humanity, according to the libs. The case will carry on. I hope this woman and I hope the bishop or bishopress or whoever this is, I hope they're all acquitted. It's obviously insane. The libs don't stop punishing their enemies. The only takeaway from the story is that, well, two takeaways. One, they hate Christianity. They hate the animating spirit of our civilization. They hate the truth. They really hate that, and they specifically want to punish you for believing in that. But in a way, that's almost secondary to the political observation in this story. The libs never stop. We stop. We go after the Clintons. We don't like the Clintons. We even try to impeach Bill Clinton, which we succeed at, but we don't convict him. And then we kind of just let him off the hook. Then Hillary runs for Senate. We kind of just let her have it. Then she runs for president, and we oppose her. She didn't even get the nomination. We let her off the hook. Then they raise tons and tons of money by selling American influence abroad, and they take money from all sorts of shady characters around the world. We don't really go after her for it. In the 2016 race, Trump says, we're going to lock her up. If I'm president, you're going to be in jail. We don't really follow through. We just kind of let it go. We let it go. That's what we do. And maybe that's a good thing. I, for one, think it's bad to imprison our presidential candidates and former presidents. So maybe it speaks well of our character that we let it go. But the libs don't let it go. The libs will just pursue you to the very ends of the earth. There is no limit to their wrath or their desire for revenge. Now, this is a bad thing because revenge is mine, saith the Lord, and I will repay, and their foot shall slide in due time. And, we don't want to be like the libs. But we might consider acknowledging the political reality. We might say, look, I don't really care about politics. But politics cares about us. We might say, oh, you know what? I'm going to leave the libs alone. The libs are going to leave me alone. Well, you might leave them alone. They won't leave you alone. We have to be willing to act and wield political power, if not to punish our enemies, at the very least to circumscribe their ability to punish us, because they are not going to stop. Now, the libs will not stop pursuing their enemies, but the one thing the libs are stopping increasingly is we've taken that ideology that you can be whatever you want here, and we've taken it to an absurd extreme, beyond the confines and the limits of logic. And the results of that are tragic. And the national results of that are that we look like complete lunatics on the international stage, because even some of the biggest lib countries in the world recognize this is crazy. Now, speaking of the American story, you ought to check out The Ballad of Davy Crockett. We here at the Daily Wire are big fans of entertainment content that is not trying to push a woke agenda. That is why you need to check out The Ballad of Davy Crockett, a pro-America, pro-family, pro-God, PG-13 action adventure that fathers and sons can watch together, and historical fiction from the imagination of writer and director Derek Eslin Purvis. The film explores some of the many myths that helped to create the legend of Davy Crockett. The story begins in 1815 when Crockett's wife falls deathly ill, leaving his young children to survive on their own. This film examines the complex 200-year history of European settlers and Native Americans living side by side as neighbors long before Andrew Jackson's Indian Removal Act. It stands in direct opposition to the genocidal colonization story that Hollywood loves to tell, instead exposing the truth that these two groups traded with each other, they intermarried, and yes, they sometimes fought as humans do. The Ballad of Davy Crockett is in select theaters and available to buy or rent everywhere you buy movies. If you want to support films that are decent, family-friendly, and push back against Hollywood's anti-America agenda, please support this small independent film. Click the link in the description and go check out The Ballad of Davy Crockett. Speaking of the mania, really disturbing story. By the way, I should say, we have recently been informed that a certain social media and video platform has been suppressing our content. And it's because they don't want us talking about certain politically incorrect types of stories. So it might be the case that a fair bit of this show has been censored today on this social media and video platform. If you want to watch the full show and you want to get the stories that and you want to get the perspectives that aforementioned or alluded to social media platforms want to suppress and censor, particularly in the lead up to 2024, you got to go to dailywire.com. You can also listen on the RSS feeds and the podcast apps. You can also check it out on X if you follow @MKnowles Show. But you won't be able to get some of those stories on one of the big video platforms. Let's leave it at that. Really disturbing story. There is a patient from Florida who I actually don't know this person's. If I've had an error in my logic, please correct me in the comments. Speaking of things you should write in the comments, yes or no is not just a show. It is the Daily Wire's #1 hit party game. We've got 200 cards filled with titillating topics and the ability to play up to 9 people at once. You can put your knowledge of your friends and family to the test. So you go to dailywire.com/shop to get yours today. Okay, that's the game, right? You see that here on my left hand, right? But wait, there's more. But wait, if you are like me, and you also have friends who will seize any opportunity to ponder aliens, the moon landing, the conspiracy theories, do not wait to get the Yes or No Conspiracy expansion pack with over 110 new cards like this one. I'll just pull one right off the top. Let's say it is possible to have shared dreams. I actually don't think I've read that card before. it is possible to have shared dreams. Mr. Davies, are you there, Mr. Davies? Can you hear me?
I'm here.
I'm shocked you don't just leave and go out and have a sandwich or something during the show. Does Mr. Davies think it is possible to have shared dreams? Probably. You're into all sorts of weird, like kooky, vibey stuff. So I'm going to say you do think that. Do you think that?
Yes, I do. It's happened to me.
It's happened. What? Really?
Yep. Maybe member block.
All right. Maybe I want to get into that member block, actually. Do you think it's possible to have shared dreams? Right? Yeah. Right. Y for yes or N for no in the comment section. I'm actually quite curious. I wrote a lot of these cards, but that one I didn't write, and that. Now it's got me thinking about that. Go to dailywire.com/shop right now. A new expansion pack might also be in the works. So is that a conspiracy or is that the greatest tease of all time? I don't know. Only time will tell. You need to get the original yes or no game to play. dailywire.com/shop. Speaking of women's issues, Gavin Newsom, California governor, who is just dying to be the president, and he is waiting for Joe Biden to die so that he can possibly have become the president. He's got a new ad out from some campaign pack that he's affiliated with. Gavin Newsom's premonition for America's future. Take it away.
We're almost there. You're gonna make it.
Trump Republicans want to criminalize young Alabama women who travel for reproductive care.
Miss, I'm going to need you to step out of the vehicle, take a pregnancy test.
Stop them by taking action at righttotravel.org. Campaign for Democracy Group is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Okay, so totally checks out everything you would expect from this ad. The good people are racially diverse, neutral accent having, lib-dressed young women who could be from California. Then the villain, he's a white man with a southern accent, the most evil, villainous sort of person ever walked the earth. Just the most odious creature. Could you imagine a southern white man? Oh, the horror, the nightmares such a thought gives me. Classic lib California Hollywood framing here. And then before we get into the political implications of this, I have to put, I guess I view this ad differently than the libs do. They're driving and the one girl says, "We're almost there. Oh, good. We're almost, I'm just so happy." They're driving to go murder her child. We remember that, right? That's the action that is being undertaken by the characters in this ad is that these two women are going to murder one of the women's children. That's not, am I the only one who looks at this and says, actually, that lady's not the hero? And then it gets really crazy. Black Mirror, what's the old version of Black Mirror? Twilight Zone kind of show, where the cop pulls the girls over and says, "You need to step out of the car, ma'am, and take a pregnancy test." So my question is, who is proposing this? Who is proposing that cops be armed with guns and pepper spray and billy clubs and pregnancy tests? Has anyone proposed that? Has anyone suggested that? No, not one person in the whole country has suggested that. Furthermore, who is proposing and trying to advance legislation that would punish women for having abortions? You might say, well, it's murdering a child, and therefore it makes sense that no prominent Republican in the whole country is advancing legislation to punish women for having abortions. In fact, the pro-life movement has taken a decisive and explicit stance against such a proposal. The pro-life movement seeks to punish abortionists, seeks to punish the abortion industry, but the pro-life movement actually gives a lot of care and a lot of charity to women who find themselves pregnant even to women who have just had abortions. Any pregnancy center you go to in America, a pro-life pregnancy center, not the abortion mills like Planned Parenthood, you go to any one, they will have resources on hand for women who have just killed their babies, who have just had abortion, because they actually live up to their reputation of caring for babies and their mothers, even mothers who have done something egregious and awful, wittingly or unwittingly, with full knowledge or without full knowledge, with full consent or without full consent, of killing their kids. Every single one. I travel to a fair number of these organizations, every single one. I've yet to come across one that does not do such a thing. So the Democrats here are fear-mongering over something that is not happening, that no one is proposing. Meanwhile, Republicans fear-monger too. We have our own scare ads. But you'll notice we fear-monger over things that the Democrats are actually doing currently. Republicans have advertisements about how the Democrats are trying to and put gay porn in the elementary schools and take away your guns and do things that the Democrats are actively doing, right, and defund the police and open up the border and destroy the economy. All of our fear-mongering is not only grounded in things that plausibly could happen, that the Democrats are proposing. Our fear-mongering is pointing out things that are occurring right now that are undeniable, and the Democrats still attempt to deny it. So why do the Democrats have to fear-monger on this ridiculous issue? It's a laughable advertisement that no one is doing and no one is even proposing, because they got nothing else. What are they going to attack? Democrats have all the political power. The country's going to pot. Everyone knows it. No one thinks that, very few people think the country's going in the right direction. So they just have to make stuff up. That's what it comes down to. And it tells you a lot about the relative position and accomplishments of the two parties. That when Republicans want to hit Democrats, we hit them for things that they are currently doing. And when Democrats want to hit Republicans, they just make up a bunch of stuff that no one is even suggesting in the future. Speaking of dumb stuff, did you know that IQ is dropping for the first time in a century? We haven't measured IQ all that long, but it's dropping. One of the strange facts about IQ, the intelligence quotient, is that it's been rising for a century now. Doesn't matter the geography, doesn't matter the races that are being measured, doesn't matter. There are disparities in IQ between different groups and different places and different backgrounds, but everyone's IQ had been increasing. Now IQ is dropping. Why? Well, this is a report on Daily Mail, which has reviewed some studies on this, including reporting from Psychology Today. And the culprit, at least according to the experts who study this, is technology. Technology is making us dumber. Specifically, one innovation that they're pointing to is the loss of handwriting from classrooms. Kids or until very recently, had not been taught to write by hand for 10 or 15 years. That was just dropped out of the curriculum around 2010. Remember when you were in school, you'd learn how to write in print, and then you'd learn how to write in cursive or longhand, and then they kind of dropped cursive a little bit. Now, I don't even think people write in print so much, because they just have computers and tablets and smartphones, and so they type more. And this is apparently causing deficiencies in learning, because when you write by hand, it's the consequence of that is not just a note card or a sheet of paper. The consequence of that is your brain is working in a specific way. You're forming neural connections that will help your brain to develop and will help you to think better as you grow older. Not just about how to make like the really difficult Z letter in cursive or something, but how to think generally. And now that's gone. So now, all of a sudden, there are new bills in places like California and New York requiring students to learn cursive writing. Some other states are hesitant to revert back, but the educators seem unanimous on this. The loss of basic skills, like a fine motor skill such as handwriting, is causing kids to get dumber. And you're seeing this reflected in broader IQ trends. Pull it out of the classroom for a second, extrapolate it beyond the cursive lessons. This is a warning about what happens when you outsource your brain. When you outsource your brain, you diminish yourself. It's like the difference between watching a movie and doing a thing. If it's fun to go watch a movie every so often, but if you just watch movies all day long and you're just sitting there eating popcorn, watching movies, letting the glittering images in front of you just happen, you will ultimately feel worse. You will atrophy. Your brain will atrophy. Your physical muscles will atrophy because you will be living in a way that is passive and not active. The extreme of this, speaking of movies, is The Matrix, where if we live in the Matrix world, we just plug our brains in to some computer and we just passively receive pleasure, but we don't actually do anything. And so you don't really have any skills. That is not going to make you happy in the long run. It's certainly not going to make you smart or productive in the long run. Now, there have been fears about technology such as this since antiquity. Even the fears in ancient Greece that, the development of writing on scrolls would diminish people's ability to memorize, which is true, actually. It probably did diminish people's ability to memorize. And that's true with the development of technology like scrolls and books. And so, does that mean we shouldn't have scrolls and books? No, not exactly. But we have to figure out some way to be active, to live in the world in accordance with reality, which means the physical world. This is the real day. It's not that computers are just bad per se and we should throw them out, though I would like to spend less time on computers and screens. It's that there's just a fact that we have bodies and the world is physical and we move through time and space and history. So you got to engage that. And if you just let your body atrophy, I'm one to talk, I never exercise, I probably should. If you let your body atrophy, if you ignore the physical world, that is not going to conduce to your flourishing. Do not outsource your brain. Now, speaking of work and sitting at a computer all day, there is a guy who's gone viral, and there is a series of videos that have gone viral demonstrating normal life and causing people to recoil in horror. Here is one such video. He's a guy, got a mustache. It says, life after college, 28-year-old with a 9 to 5. Drives to work, gets out of the elevator. He says 9 to 5 is really 7 to 4. Spends mornings checking his email, then he takes lunch at 11. Gets his lunch, some quesadillas, takes it back to his desk. Sits there, has a little break, washes his hands, goes and does some more spreadsheets. Then he, gets some water. It's got a mug, it says normalize the norm. Then he leaves, goes to his car, picks up some grocery store on the way home, some fruit, some milk, Cliff Bars, I can't really get into that. Goes back home, changes into workout gear, says normalize the norm. Then he goes and works out outside. Then he makes one of these protein shakes that the athlete type guys do. And then he goes and walks his dog. And the commentary on social media, mostly from spoiled little children, is that this is horrifying. This is the worst way to live. Could you imagine this awful existence? A life of quiet desperation, as some have said. Seems fine. Now, when the Zoomers and some of the catastrophists are looking at this and they're saying, this is horrible, this is a life of quiet desperation, what a boring, awful way to live. I side with the boomers and Gen X and the millennials who say, listen, kid, go to work and quit your belly aching. I understand their point and I do agree with that. But the Zoomers have a point. The people who are looking at that video and saying, this is awful, what a terrible life, I don't want to do that, it looks so boring, it looks so soulless. I sympathize with them. I empathize with them. I've had kind of a crazy career. So I actually did reject that sort of life of predictability and normality. Though I've later on come into it because I've come to learn that normality is a good thing. The point that the Zoomers and the critics of this video have is that life must be about more than this. And the point that the millennials and the Gen X and the Zoomers and the boomers rather have is a life that looks like that at work can also be about more than that. Because what's missing in that video is the guy's wife. I think he's got a wedding ring on in the video. So he's married, it's just not in there. The thing that's missing is kids. The thing that's missing is the family reunion. The thing that's missing is his civic association that he joins. The thing that's missing is his going to church. The thing that's missing is his going to the school board meeting. The thing that's missing is his taking a drive through the country. The thing that's missing is all the rest of the stuff of life. This is just a narrow little sliver of what this guy does. The spoiled Zoomers who are criticizing this, the reason they're criticizing it is because they don't have much sense that you need material prosperity in order to serve the basic necessities of life. But you do need that. You got to work. And work is work sometimes. Even if you have a really fun job, I have a fun job. But sometimes work is work. Even for me, even if you're doing the thing that you totally want to be doing, sometimes you just got to grind through it and work. But if that is all your life is, which is presently, unfortunately, in a lot of people's minds, that life is just about going to work and, getting stuff and then going home and being alone and not having family and just then you wake up and do it again, then your life will be miserable. Then that will be a desperate life. Not because you're working a stable job that provides you a decent income, but because you have no idea what to do with that income and you have no idea what to do with the leisure time that ultimately will afford you. Ladies and gents, this is your official summons. If you have not yet tuned into the new Daily Wire Plus series, Judged by Matt Walsh, now is the time to start watching. Court is officially back in session with episode 4 of our reality courtroom comedy series premiering tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on Daily Wire Plus. Matt Walsh is fully embodying the judge role, donning the robe, wielding the gavel, and deciding the fates of the brave souls who dare to stand before him. And yes, his rulings are indeed legally binding. Do not miss episode 4 of Judged by Matt Walsh tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern, only on Daily Wire Plus. If you are not yet a Daily Wire Plus member, today is your last chance to get 35% off your annual membership. Use the promo code JUDGED at dailywireplus.com. My favorite comment yesterday is from the Drummers Workshop, Norm's Music. I don't look at the names of the commenters. I just pick the comment. It just happens. The Drummers Workshop, Norm's Music. He pops up a lot. To quote Joe Biden's uncle, Joey, it's simple. Those men were hungry. It's a great comment. For those of you who do, they always say nothing's funnier than explaining a joke. You might recall Joe Biden made up some story about how when he's in 1950s Delaware or Scranton, he's driving up, he sees a couple of dudes making out with each other in the middle of the street. And Joe Biden's father, Joe Biden was born in the 1940s. Joe Biden's father, born in the 19-teens or something, supposedly turns to Biden and says, Joey, those men, they just love each other. Joey, it's simple. They just love each other. Now, that story did not happen. If we're actually talking about 1940s Delaware, Joe Biden's, blue-collar Irish father probably would have run the men over. Okay, I don't mean to besmirch the memory of Joe Biden's father, but give me a break, okay? Joey, they just love each other. So, you're right, that's the sequel. Joe Biden's uncle gets eaten by New Guinea cannibals. Joey, those men, they were just hungry. They were just, come on, Joey, you got to see things from their point of view. Joe Biden was raised by Atticus Finch, I think. Speaking of the youths and working, millennials, according to a new poll, are supporting a 4-day work week. Okay, I amend my previous point. The grouches who say, quit your belly aching and just work, I guess that's just the boomers and Gen X. I guess the millennials are on Team Zoomer whining about doing any actual work. But they kind of have a point too. They kind of have a point, okay? I'm sorry, I can't just identify with the boomers and the Gen X because they're missing a really important gripe that the Zoomers and the millennials have. The Zoomers are expressing this by the horror of mundane living, absent the things that make life really, really special and worthwhile. The millennials are expressing their dismay with work by calling for a 4-day work week. This is a recent poll conducted for Newsweek by Redfield and Wilton Strategies found that of all people, of all generations, millennials are most in favor of reducing their weekly work hours. Apparently, the poll found that 63% of voters support transitioning to a 4-day work week. 46% believe it will make workers more productive. So a clear majority of people want to work less. Less than half of them say it will actually make workers more productive. They don't, but they just want to work less. Now, millennials, of all the groups, nearly 3/4 of them say that they want to reduce their working hours. 44% are strongly in favor of that shorter work week. An additional 30% generally support the idea. Only 8% of millennials oppose the idea of this 4-day work week. Okay, so what do we think about it? The grouch boomers and Gen X will say, you spoiled brats, you should be working 7 days a week. When I was a young man, I walked uphill in the snow both ways to go to work. And I worked 26 hours a day to provide for my family. The millennials and the Zoomers say, I don't want to work. I don't want to work. What do I think about this? I support the 4-day work week in principle. In principle, I support it. Well, look, we used to have a 6-day work week. Then, in recent decades, or at least the last century, we got a 5-day work week. We could have a 4-day work week. I guess we could have a 6-day work week again. I don't know. It's somewhat arbitrary. It's social norms. We could have a 7-day work week if we want to ignore the Sabbath. So we could. Yeah, you could move it. In principle, I support it. In practice, I do not. In practice, I don't think that the problem in America right now is that we're all working too hard. There is a problem that we don't know what to do with our leisure time, but that's not for lack of time. That's for lack of education. The point of education is not to train you to do a job. The point of education is to train you to make good use of your leisure time. It's not vocational training. It's training for leisure. It's to cultivate interests and habits and culture. It's for culture, right? So that you can make sense of your freedom. That's why we call it liberal arts. People don't have that now. People have free time. Even when I'm working a crazy week, there's a little bit of free time somewhere. And even what do I do with my free time? I'm someone who takes this really seriously. I really have tried to cultivate interests to make good use of my leisure time. And yet, what am I doing most of the time? Probably doom scrolling. That's what I'm doing. I'm probably squandering that leisure time. Americans are much less likely to get married now. We're having many fewer children. We're less involved in our communities. We're politically very disengaged. And this is more and more pronounced the younger you look. We're religiously increasingly disengaged. We're not. So what are we going to do with those 3 days off? We're not even making good use of the 2 days off right now. That's a big problem because idle hands are the devil's playground. So I have no problem with people working a little bit less if we're going to make good use of that time, if that's going to serve the community, if that's going to help individuals to prosper and flourish and become the best version of themselves. But I see no evidence that that's the case. Probably right now, if you gave people an extra day off, what they would do is doom scroll more, look at porn, and blow money on frivolous brunches. Probably is what would happen. Now, the brunch would be the most productive and defensible thing that people would do. So I'm totally happy to have a conversation about a 4-day work week. But first, we need to make sure that would actually help people and lead to their personal growth and flourishing and the growth of strong families and strong communities rather than harm them, which I suspect exactly what would happen now. Speaking of making bad use of your free time, there was a major protest at Columbia University led by, I guess, the Hamas faction of the student Democrats. This anti-Jewish protest that took place in New York City on the Columbia campus. Well, here's the sort of things they were saying. Uncultured, ASS, BITCHES, go back to Europe. You have no culture.
All you do is colonize.
They're waving the Palestine flag. They're wearing keffiyehs around their heads, like the Palestinian keffiyeh. They're screaming Yehudi at the Jews.
Stop killing children!
Stop killing children. Go back to Poland, I think was one of the lines. And so, I don't know, I guess the Jewish kids go back. And then they chant, oh Hamas, oh loved one. So that's the translation. Ya Hamas, Ya Habib, hit and strike Tel Aviv. Oh, man. That's not great. Now, this protest should interest even non-Jews. Because maybe you don't really care about the Jews. Maybe you don't really care about the state of Israel. Maybe you don't care about anything other than yourself. I don't know. Like, I suspect you have broader interests in charity and stuff like that. But let's say you're a non-Jewish white guy and you don't care about any of this stuff. You only care about yourself. one cannot help but notice that all of the attacks that the Hamas faction of Columbia University are levying against the Jews are the same attacks that they throw at non-Jewish white people. You're a colonizer. Go back to Europe. You're oppressing people. This is our land. Go, all sorts of insulting names. This is the same stuff. You might have all sorts of reasons why you don't like Israel or you question the actions of Israel or whatever, and fine, all well and good. Whatever conversation you want to have about that, we can have that at some point too. But it is simply a fact. Much of the vitriol against the state of Israel right now, much of the reasoning as to why we got to stop supporting the state of Israel is being levied by the political left along the exact same lines of logic and argumentation that they attack non-Jewish white people, that they attack Europe, that they attack the United States. We're settler colonizers. We're racist. We're evil. We're privileged. We're this, we're that. One ignores that at one's own peril. And it wasn't just Columbia. You got to see what they did at Yale University. We've run out of time. That's my tease. We'll get to my own beloved alma mater descending into, I know Yale some years ago launched a satellite campus in Singapore. I don't know, perhaps we'll launch a satellite campus now in Raqqa or something. I don't know. Maybe we'll do a split with, the University of Hezbollah or something. The rest of the show continues now. You do not want to miss it. Become a member. Use code Knowles, KNWLES at checkout for 2 months free on all annual plans.